It's a Fergie Friday. Head out to Los Angeles to talk to Coach Bill Ferguson, not only the former USC men's head coach, but now an assistant coach at Cal State for the women. And well, tell us about the women's gig before we talk about the men, which is why you're here.
Well, I volunteered at Cal State LA in the fall and was only able to be there a little bit. And once the season ended, had a really great experience. Randy Smart, who's the head coach, is a great gal, and I really enjoy working with her. And she used to play out your way at LSU back in the day for Luster. And so had a great experience, loved the team, loved my time there. And season ended. I was still here in LA, and guy by the name of Mike Garrett, who was the athletic director at my old school, who hired me there. He became the athletic director at Cal State LA. And between Randy and Mr. Garrett, they made a really cool situation for me to be able to stay home in Los Angeles and get into the women's college volleyball gig and not have to change life up too much, and really excited about it, and just pretty humbled and fortunate at the opportunity Randy and Mr. Garrett put together for me.
Sweet. I'm glad to hear it. Of course, you and I have talked about it a little bit, but talk about it here and tell the world. It's kind of cool. The reason, though, of course, that we're chatting like this is to talk about men's volleyball. So I'm going to set you up a couple of things, and then you take it from there. Certainly, the MPSF is extremely top-heavy and a jumbled mess right now, and one really good team is going to get left out.
As usual.
That there's not a major upset in the MPSF conference tournament. And then, of course, Conference Carolinas is going to get a bid, barring something incredibly unusual, even with a loss to St. Francis. Penn State is going to take the EIVA bid. And then this Friday is a huge match. Ohio State goes to Ball State. And, of course, they still have a tournament, but the MIVA winner gets the other bid. And I maintain that the two at-large bids will come from the MPSF. So that's what I surmise, and you tell me how I'm doing.
Well, I think that's definitely the most likely scenario. Now, Ohio State, if Ohio State wins out, I think you've got it's a lot cleaner. Ohio State had a big win against Long Beach State last week. And when you get into, there's RPI and all that, but you're also going to be looking at competition against the field, or the field of consideration. And so that is going to go into seeding the teams a little bit. And it may go in a head-to-head issue on some kind of at-large bid. So if Ohio State wins out, that makes everything clean. If Ball State wins, then it gets a little murky, because Ball State's going to probably – they'll have the best shot and control their own destiny to win out in the MIVA. Now, that's not saying their schedule is pretty brutal here. They still, if I look at it right, they still they have Ohio State tomorrow, and then they finish on the road at Loyola and Lewis. And then that starts getting tricky. And the team that can really kind of drive the bus from behind here is Loyola. They still get to play Penn State. They still play Ball State. So you're going to have that now. If Ball State gets knocked off one or two, all of a sudden Loyola if they take care of their business, they become the number 2 team in the MIVA, and with matches against Penn State, who's likely going to be in the field and it's going to help RPI. And then they will have knocked off, if in this scenario, they will have knocked off Ball State. And then all of a sudden they kind of make everything interesting. They're the fly in the ointment, just sitting there waiting for their crack at some of these top teams at the end of the year.
Yeah, so it's actually more muddled probably than I gave it credit for. And then, the at-large could definitely be affected. But then in the MPSF, in which you used to coach, has it been like this before, where you have 4 teams so much above everybody else and doing so well and so close?
Yeah, actually, 2012 was very much like that. We ended up winning the conference, the regular season championship. There was USC, Irvine, BYU, and UCLA, and Stanford. There's 5 teams all packed in at the top. This year there's 4. And I believe the last week of the season, we were 5th and Stanford was 4th. And by the end of that weekend, if volleyball fans remember, that was the crazy BYU at UCLA, the Marvin Hall line call, no line call. They had to go back and play the 5th set over again from like 8-6.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
that totally upended everything. Irvine stayed put at 3, and then USC and Stanford, we jumped up to 1, and Stanford at 2, and we, so that's how close it was. In one weekend, we went from 5th to winning the conference outright.
Let me tell you, like looking at the standings right here. So, you got Long Beach at 14-3, Stanford at 13-3, BYU at 13-3, and UCLA at 13-3. And then there's a big drop to Pepperdine at 10-7, Santa Barbara 9-8, and then Hawaii, which was once in the picture, at 7-9. I mean, those 3 teams, of course, that will still make the conference tournament, but barring an upset, I mean, it just seems so top heavy.
Yeah, it is. Now the trick here with the MPSF is you're going to have right now Stanford and Long Beach both hold the tiebreaker over BYU. So BYU is going to have to win out in order to host, and that's usually a big deal at altitude. If that tournament goes to Provo, BYU by and large wins it. That's the way it's been. That's not to say the other Stanford, Long Beach, or UCLA. It's not to say they can't win in Provo. It's just less likely. So you got Long Beach, UCLA, and Stanford all in the driver's seat. Now UCLA and Long Beach and Stanford all play each other here. You're going to have Saturday night in the Pyramid, UCLA at Long Beach State.
Yeah, that's the showcase match of the weekend, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, and then next week you've got BYU at UCLA for 2 matches. So that's going to be crazy. And then Long Beach State has to get near the end of the season. They have to play Stanford, I believe, on the road. So that's going to play itself out. That's going to be the interesting deal is in both the MIVA and the MPSF, you have all of these teams all playing each other at the end of the year that are all right next to each other in the standings. It's pretty cool for volleyball fans that worked out that way.
It's pretty good. Well, I'll leave you with this. I'm going to post this today, which is Thursday, because those matches all happen this weekend. And then this weekend, I'm going to post an interview that I did with USC beach volleyball player Zoe Nightingale. And the reason I'm asking you about this is number one is because I want the people who are men's volleyball fans to know that this video exists. So, check this out in a couple of days here at destinationvolleyball.com. But the hook is that not only is Zoe a pretty good player, she was a fabulous indoor player and is doing well on the beach, but she has a 4-year career and graduated from UCLA, and then transferred to get her master's and is playing beach at USC, and is like, they would say, "Oh, Bill, did you ever hear of such a thing?"
Well, I married a Bruin.
That's true. I've just always been amazed at the depth of the rivalry between these 2 schools in every sport, and of course, especially volleyball. And that is just something. And she was a great kid to talk to, and a fabulous interview, and has a great sense of humor. So, but you of all people have, and I knew that your wife was a UCLA person, and that of course you coached at USC for all those years, so you would have some perspective on it.
Yeah, I believe my first match back as an assistant coach was a TV match. I was an assistant at SC, and Bren was actually with her former teammates in the stands, sitting in the UCLA section with her former UCLA teammates, while I'm sitting there on the bench coaching for the team across town. And for the volleyball history folks, that was the first of the 12-match winning streak that UCLA put together, and then eventually went on and won Al Skate's final national championship. So that was we came from ahead to lose that night. Unfortunately, we were up 2-0, and the Bruins put one together against or put three together against us, and then another 11 to end up closing out the year and winning the Natty. So that was a crazy night for our family, that's for sure.
I'll leave you with this. A few years back, I covered the NCAA men's water polo championships, and it came down to the final between, of course, USC, which was in the midst of its great run, and UCLA. And the coach from San Diego, whose last name escapes me, his name is Denny, and his first name. And I said to him, he had lost to one of those teams, and I said, could you give me a little perspective on this championship match between UCLA and USC? And he paused, and he looked at me, and he said, about an hour and 10 minutes of a bar fight.
Yep.
Still the greatest quote maybe I ever got in my whole sports writing career, and pretty much sums up how that rivalry goes. All right, Fridays with Fergie, man. Thanks a lot. It was awesome.
Hey, we'll do it on a Thursday every time if we need to.
Yeah, exactly. Except that did I say Friday? I don't know why I got my weeks confused. Days confused, whatever. All right, see you, Bill.
All right, thanks, Lee.